among other things, it was so well produced. Oh man,
Big Dragon's work on it was sublime.
He did all the filming of it, and Soundless is the one who put it together. That was
a lot of them on the credits. Yeah,
that was like the power station.
I did a studio guest here thing. I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years. Whenever they first started, I had a guy from Soundless come up here. You know, you got to really find out what they were all about and all the cool things they do and how important it is to the economy and all that stuff.
They do a lot of things, a lot of government stuff down there. The whole facility is really amazing. I've never seen anything like it.
I thought you liked a little thing I printed out for you there.
Yeah, I was looking at it. I said I was here for most of these shows because I lived there, so.
I saw a lot of the new wave ones because at the time that was kind of what we were into.
I remember when the police walked in and I thought they were the roadies. They walked in, they came in a station wagon, started carrying their gear in. They were all wearing leather jackets and sneakers and stuff.
Oh, man.
I didn't realize that was their uniform, because that's what they wore.
If you go to the Wikipedia page for Dream On, not Aerosmith, but the Dream On page, it says the song was first played publicly at the Shabu.
I watched them rehearse it.
Good.
Lenny Grindstein and I were playing in
from Shabu.
There's a video
of them
of them playing Dream On at the Shabu on YouTube.
Wow, look at that,
dude! It's the sound quality.
I was there for that.
The sound quality.
That was the Aerosmith show, the first show.
Sorry about that.
Then I was there sitting right next to Brad. I kept asking him about his Marshalls.
Marshalls, man. My idea of
20 minutes after 7 o'clock, 67 degrees, and some areas have some pretty good fog. We can see some here on Main Street, too. That'll burn off to a warm, humid day today. It's not too often that I have a guest on one day, and then a week later I bring them back. But we had Jimi Photon in the studio here last week in the 9:30 segment, talking about a benefit that took place at the Lucky Frog last Sunday night. And we got so much into what was going on with local music, Avalanche and some other things, including the Easton brothers who lost their studio a while ago. That's what the benefit was for, Lucky Frog. I said, you know what, there's uncharted territory. Let's bring Jimi back, and let's bring Mark Easton back. Guys, we're going to have a fun morning today talking about local music and Shabu and Avalanche, and for that matter, the fire. Mark, tell me about how devastating that was for you and your brother to lose everything you had there in that studio.
Well, it was very devastating. My brother's still recovering from it. He's still not doing well. And we lost everything. We lost 10 years worth of accumulation of work and of equipment, a lot of which was donated to us by some of our friends and accumulated through trading other stuff and just however we could scrimp and save and put everything together. Plus, but the worst thing was the memorabilia stuff that we had that is just irreplaceable. That was from the beginning of our careers, from the last 40 years, 50 years.
I mean, autographs and pictures.
Autographs of famous people and pictures and photographs and things like that. And,
I mean, it was a beautiful
Not
picture.
to mention the music that we lost. We had an extensive old vinyl record collection. We had cassette tapes, 8 tracks, just a lot of stuff.
The Avalanche 45 on the wall.
The Avalanche stuff. Not to mention our equipment.
Full PA system, all of Barry's drums.
Barry lost 5 sets of drums, something like 20 snare drums, vintage snare drums that he had collected for the last 40 years, stuff like that.
And his workshop there, because Barry used to take drums, like cheesy, crappy drums, and fix them up and give them to kids.
That was his hobby.
That's his hobby. He liked doing it.
So Sunday was the benefit here next door at the Lucky Frog. And how important was that for you, Mark? Not just that there was some monetary benefit, I guess, but more the support that people showed, the appreciation for what you've done.
I've been overwhelmed by the support of the musical community in Connecticut here. A lot of these bands I didn't even know. Some of them I knew existed, never met them, and some of them I never even heard of. And I've met a whole new community of great musicians, great people, and overwhelmingly generous, overwhelmingly supportive. It's very humbling. And it's
the Silk City
very
and Trent City
heartwarming.
crews have come together.
Yeah,
which is really
because
cool.
Jimi lives in Manchester, so he has access to all the music that's happening that way, and I live here, and tend to go east or north.
And all our people tend to go back and forth between us both, so it's just an awesome thing.
Was there a little bit, too, of seeing some of these young up-and-coming bands and thinking back to your days of Avalanche as a young and up-and-coming band?
Absolutely. Some of these guys are really good. They deserve a break. I mean, just
Pyramus,
unbelievable.
Pyramus,
Pyramus.
just fun.
Since Sunday, one of
Six
my
Since
favorite
Sunday,
bands, new
yeah.
bands, just absolutely amazing.
They take oldies like Neil Diamond songs and play them kind of like punk,
Mm-hmm.
and people go crazy. They're playing Sweet Caroline,
And people
they get to
sing
the
to
break,
it.
and people are all like da da da.
Yeah.
You know,
So
and it's
good,
like
so
so
good,
good,
so
so
good.
good. And
Yeah.
he's like, thank you. You know?
It's just amazing. They're all great
He's twisted.
entertainers. They've all
Yeah, Lee Steele, he's a great guy. Bass player in a band called Goodhead too, which is another outstanding band.
Was there a highlight for the night on the day or the night? No, was there
Maybe
one?
ending with "Are You Experienced" by Jimi Hendrix is the very last song.
that
but
was cool. For me, it was the Freebird Jam.
Freebird,
We did a reggae version of Freebird, and at the end of it, we did a 3-guitar solo.
the way
was-
that the record used to be, kind of, you know.
and that was for me. That was my high night. I sat down after that.
Me,
I was
Mike, and
done.
Mark, we must have ripped on that for about, Jesus, 20 minutes or
Uh-huh.
so. Yeah, it was-
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because so many concerts, sort of the in joke is "Freebird." People yell it out. Well, I guess did somebody yell it out, and that's when you started to play it, or was that
Not
all-
necessarily.
was that
I don't
part of the
remember
plan?
that.
I
don't
didn't want to
recall.
play Freebird after Skinner's plane crashed back in 77, 78. It just felt like wearing tight shoes, you know. It wasn't, there was something wrong with it. And then, I mean, I would play it on occasion if I was getting paid to, you know. So the song's always been in my head. It's a great song. It's just, you know, I even got busted on Main Street when I was in high school playing it once. That's another story for another day.
It's one of those sacred things, you know,
But
like Stairway to Heaven.
I was
You don't
playing,
touch it.
I was playing with this band called the Dirty Birds, which was the house band at a place called Free Spirit in Vernon. And somebody yelled for Freebird one night. And I just looked at the guys, and it's like I figured if they didn't know how to play that, then they had no business even being on stage. So we just played it. And people went crazy because they didn't think we were going to play it. And then the next time was U.S. Legion with Mike Bloomer and Jess McFarland on the bass and Cal Myers on the other guitar. What we had basically was you have some like psychedelic shredder weirdo like me, and then you got Mike Bloomer, who's the blues guy, and then you have Cal, who is like a certified Chet Atkins kind of, well, not even Chet Atkins, more like Carl Perkins kind of, just Jerry Reed kind of guitar slinger, you know, real serious
Rootsy.
country kind of
Yeah.
guy. And you put the three of us together, it's called U.S. Legion. And or the four of us together, they call it U.S. Legion, with Stan Kokoska on the drums from wherever Stan's from. I think he's Enfield or something. But one night, as a joke, we played Freebird reggae style, and at the end of the song, I kicked it into the hyperdrive part, and ever since then,
That's the way you do it.
it's the way it has to happen. It has to be reggae.
Do you remember when the first time was the two of you guys got together when you first met?
I remember. I don't know how much Mark remembers of it. You know, I mean, it was
Like they
For-
say,
for
if you
me,
remember
I
the,
remember
if you
when-
remember the '60s, you weren't there.
No.
Well, see, here's the thing. I was young enough in the 60s where I remember all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't.
But me and Mark didn't actually start really hanging out till about 86.
That was when I was working at Columbia
Yeah,
Manufacturing.
Columbia Manufacturing, and it was like, I hadn't seen Mark since I was a kid, because he used to live at the top of Holbrook Ave, where I lived. And he had this dog with a sign that said, you know, beware of dog, and I used to just walk into his yard and like play with it and pet it and stuff. And he came out one time, you know, kind of vaguely hippie-ish guy. He's like,
See, I don't even remember living on Holbrook.
Really?
No, I just don't remember it.
maybe I'm tripping. I don't know. It's been many years. Anyways,
Did you have a dog? Did you have a
I
beware of
I've
dog
had
sign?
several dogs. I always had
Alright.
a dog. I rescue pets.
I'm
I have
talking
four
like-
now. Four, 2 dogs and 2 cats.
this would have been maybe like 67, maybe 66, 67, somewhere in there. Well, it's way back. Anyways.
Okay.
But anyways, then we ran into each other at Columbia Manufacturing,
Right.
where we both had the misfortune of working in the Burbench department.
Actually, I was working for the
Sheet
presses.
Presses? Oh, that was
I worked
good.
for presses.
What was the department again? The Burr bench?
Burbench,
The
yeah.
Burbench, yeah.
Basically, if you're a burr hand, burr hands get paid the least in the machine shop, but we're the guys that have to fix everybody else's mistakes.
Exactly.
You know,
Take
so
off all the little nubs and edges and smooth everything out. And,
yeah, has to have a 3 to 16 degree edge break. Was that what it
I
was?
forget
Something
what
like
it
that.
was. It was easy.
It was It was an interesting experience to work in when you're a musician. Well, for one, with all the machines, after a while, it kind of starts sounding like music to you, which is,
Right, that drone.
you know, well, you hear the harmonics from it, especially with the metal vibrating.
Probably
It's like,
contributed to your hearing loss too.
what?
Yeah, that's my point exactly. Mark, what's the future of what you plan on doing? Can you rebuild the studio? Is
I
that
don't
part
know
of the
if
plan?
we're going to rebuild a building, but I am in the process of gathering gear. I've already bought some gear for rebuilding my own personal studio. So one way or another, I'm going to be recording again. So that's what I'm doing.
What have you done? Have you borrowed other studios, or what have you done in the meantime?
I haven't really done anything in the meantime. I can record 2 tracks in my living room right now at a time, which is not very limited, but I can
You can build
that.
a lot with
I can
2
build a
tracks.
lot. So I can at least do that. Tell you the truth, since the fire, I've basically thrown myself really into live playing, and I haven't really paid much attention to the recording end of it. I've just been enjoying myself playing out with everybody.
Which is a great thing to see Mark in his element, because for a long time, Mark wasn't in his element. You know, I mean, he was recording, which is another, you know, aspect of Mark, but the real power with Mark Easton and his brother particularly, you put the 2 of them together, it's you get cold fusion happening, you know. To see them live in their element is one of the most amazing things. It's so powerful, it's just unfathomable.
It's Jimmy Photon along with Mark Easton, who lost his recording studio a couple months ago. They had a benefit for the Easton brothers back on Sunday here at the Lucky Frog. We'll talk more music with the guys after a break for the news, sports, and the weather on WILI.
Yeah, I don't remember
Beautiful.
living on Hope with that.
Dude,
I used to visit up there a lot.
well, maybe that's what was
I
going
had a
on.
friend up there, I think.
Dude, I remember meeting you. But I was just a kid, man. I mean, I was like in first
Yeah.
or second grade or something. Little fat porker. Man.
So you sure you lived on Holbrook?
I know I lived there.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, I know where he lived. I know his family home. So, you know,
It was you who told me about living there. This was
see,
Probably 30 years
67.
ago.
That would have been. I would have been living on Brook Street
Brook Street. Okay.
or Elm Street. Elm Street.
Yeah,
That's
maybe
where I
you were
lived
just
for 13
chilling there or
years. I
something.
must have been. 'Cause,
Or maybe it was Billy Darling that lived there.
that's where Billy and Josie lived.
Okay, so that's why you were there, because Josie was there.
No, I didn't meet Josie until high school.
You would have been in high school then.
In 67. Yes, you're right. That's how it happened. Because I knew
That's how it
Billy.
happened. See that? We put our heads together, you know, half a brain apiece.
Public hearing tomorrow
It
evening
almost
to
works.
discuss several items. The meeting will consider the purchase of a tract of land consisting
And
of
saved
6
from
acres of
posterity
Oak
over
Road,
here.
formerly the
Forced
Rent-A-Car
recreation
property.
live on
The
stage.
cost to the town will be $70,000. Residents will also consider a proposed ordinance authorizing the withdrawal from the Wyndham Council of Governments and joining the Northeast Council of Governments. Another item to consider is authorizing the Board of Selectmen
I'm
in
almost
Scotland to
back.
join with the towns of Chaplin and Hampton to conduct a school analysis study. Meeting starts at 7 in the Scotland Volunteer Memorial Hall on Brook Road. Willimantic police have released the identity of the man found dead in the Willimantic River last week. 37-year-old Bobby Picard's death is considered
You guys
accidental
should
at this
go
time, but
get,
police ask anyone with information in the
Stephanie
incident to
Barry
call them at 465.
Have his people help you with
3135.
that.
I talked to
Patricia
Ron about
Snyder's
it.
been appointed
Like I
as the
said,
town of Mansfield's
Okay,
new
you
Human
start this
Services
way.
Director.
You gotta be
Snyder begins
slow.
working in Mansfield on September 30th. She
First,
replaces
let's
Kevin
see what happens
Wildwall,
Friday,
who
he
recently
said,
retired. WILI News Time,
We'll go from there.
7:33.
Take it.
This news is brought to you by Sumner and Sumner.
Well, I think I told you I went to Block Island on Sunday. We do a promotion every year. We take a bus full of winners.
Did the guy get the 7 tickets?
No, but he had 4 of those. I think he won twice. I didn't realize that. So he had, he won with one name, and somebody else in the family won with another name. But they were fine. Although I did have 4 no-shows. Two people with 2 tickets each didn't show up. And trust me, that's in my files. Next year, if they win, they'll be rather like that. So I got too much sun. I was really fried when the day was over. I mean, I did have sunblock, but I just didn't use it enough.
Yeah, still when you're out there all day.
Yeah.
And then I walked a lot, and when I got back here at like 7:30, I was just like, I just want to go home. Well, the bus was in the back of the building here, and I heard the music. And then when I left here, I went by. I saw them playing outside. And you know, if it was a normal day, I would have gone. But I had
7:34. Patrick Allen says hazy and summer-like today. Temps in the mid-
It was insane. That's went off without a hitch. We went from stage to stage, back and forth,
66 degrees on Main Street.
every hour. It started a little late,
The rainfall in
and then I got it back on schedule by cutting the first couple bands by about 10 minutes. And by 5 o'clock, we were pretty much back on schedule. Of course, smoking herb went a little bit, I think, didn't we? We were 9:15, I think.
Yeah,
we stopped.
But that's all right. Yeah. It worked out.
Was it all outdoors? Or was it
Yeah, we stayed outdoors. It got a little chilly.
Well, I mean, he wanted us to set up 2 stages outside and then set up another stage inside. And I
That's
mean,
what I was asking.
Yeah.
frankly, I mean, I'm a musician, not a roadie. You know, I mean, I don't want to have to do. I didn't even want to have to deal with putting all the stuff back
It was
in.
a nice night to be outdoors, though.
Ah, it was perfect. Well, for me, it was perfect. For me, you know, we generate a lot of heat.
Yeah, we do.
It's amazing how much heat the amplifiers and volts throw off. You know, all that excited air particle stuff.
Right?
7:35 at WILI, 67 degrees. Wayno checking sports on Wednesday. It was as if he never got hurt. Clay Buchholz allowed 3 hits over 5 innings in his first start since early June. And the American League East leading Boston Red Sox beat Tampa Bay 2-0 last night, and his last inning was one of his best innings.
5, getaway center, but that'll be caught. Backpedaling Victorino, he's under it. He makes the catch to retire the side. That's a 1-2-3 fifth inning. So 74 pitches for Clay. Through 5 is the Red Sox 2 and Tampa Bay nothing.
And that made Buchholz 10-0 on the season. He'd been sidelined by a strained neck and hadn't pitched in the majors since beating the Angels on June 8th. The right-hander, who made 3 rehab starts in the minors, struck out Jose Molina with 2 on to end the second. That was probably his toughest challenge. And overall, he felt good.
But it's you know, they let that be known before the game was, or before I even got activated. You know, it's what they wanted to do. So you know, next time I'll build up a little bit more, and hopefully that'll be.
Johnny Gomes and Jared Saltalamacchia each drove in a run for the Red Sox, and Salty, the catcher, said it was an amazing performance by Buchholz.
But after having 3 months off like that, and, I know he made 3 rehab starts, but it's tough to come into a big league ball game, especially as big as this game was, and kind of hold your emotions. And he did. He did a great job and pitched an unbelievable game.
So the Sox extend their lead over second-place Tampa Bay to 8.5 games now, and Tampa Bay has lost 12 of its last 16 games. Manager Joe Madden looking for some magic.
This organic moment within the group that all of a sudden just pops, and all of a sudden, then you're going to see it just take off again. But it can't be contrived and fabricated. Something's got to happen within this group, whether it's a hitter, whether it's a pitcher, I don't know. But something has to occur that's going to get us on the right track again and become more consistent.
Ryan Dempster throws for the Sox in Tampa Bay tonight against Alex Cobb. Will carry the game at 6:25 on WILI. Jacoby Ellsbury, take the night off. It's your 30th birthday. He's out for a few more weeks. Alfonso Soriano hit 2 home runs, including a tie-breaking shot in the 8th, and the Yankees rallied past Baltimore 7-5 to end a 6-game losing streak at Camden Yards.
No homered last time. Pitch swung on and driven at deep right center field. It is high. It is far. It is.
That's John Sterling's call on WCBS, and by the way, those calls are moving to WFAN next year. No more WCBS for the Yankees network. That's the report from Newsday yesterday. As for the man with the 2 home runs, Alfonso Soriano.
Too often, and they have to throw like 27 now, so it goes on. We have a very good lineup.
Mark Reynolds also homered for the Yankees, who won for the second time in 6 games to bolster their postseason hopes, as they are 2 games out of the wild card race now. Baltimore a game and a half back, and Cleveland a game and a half back. Jeremy Guthrie got a major assist from his defense in pitching 6 innings. Alcides Escobar hit a rare home run, and Kansas City snapped a 6-game losing streak in Cleveland 6-3 to close in on the Indians in the wild card race. Yankees send Andy Pettit at Baltimore tonight. Oakland unable to pad its 2-game lead over the Rangers in the AL West. Josh Willingham hit 2 home runs, including a 2-run shot in the 8th that put the Twins in front for good, 4-3. Detroit's lead in the American Central 5.5 after the Tigers beat the White Sox 9-1, and Cleveland fell to Kansas City. By the way, the Yankees lost some more players last night. Alex Rodriguez left the game with a hamstring injury on a play when he tried to accelerate scoring from third base. The starter, Ivan Nova, left the game in the 6th with sore triceps, and Austin Romine, the catcher, had to leave that game with a concussion. And it may be a sign that Derek Jeter might not be back anytime soon. The Yankees obtained slick-fielding shortstop Brendan Ryan from the Seattle Mariners for a player to be named. Cardinals still lead the National Central by 1 game over Pittsburgh, with Cincinnati now 3 games back after the Reds' 9-1 loss to the Cubs. Willie Peralta was working on a no-hitter until Matt Holliday snapped a scoreless tie with a 2-run homer in the 6th inning of the Redbirds' 4-2 victory against Milwaukee. Andrew McCutchen delivered the 3 RBI singles, and Francisco Liriano picked up his career-high 16th victory as the Pirates held off Texas 5-4. Washington Nationals beat the New York Mets 6-3 for their 4th straight win. Jason Worth kept up his power surge. Charlie Slows.
And it's gone. Goodbye. Into the party deck. A line drive home run for Jason Worth on the 1-0 pitch from Dylan G.
That's Charlie Slows call on WJFK in Washington. Jordan Zimmerman wound up with his NL leading 17th victory. Atlanta's magic number to clinch the NL East is 7 after Evan Gattis had an RBI double and a run-scoring single in the Braves' 4-3 verdict over Miami. Washington plays the Mets in New York tonight. Zach Wheeler throwing for the Mets. UConn men's soccer team played a scoreless draw last night with Washington as the Huskies dominated play but couldn't get the ball to go in the net. Those teams are both ranked in the top 10 nationally. UConn's goalkeeper Andre Blake played all 110 minutes, needing just 2 saves to keep Washington at bay. Second half goals by Eddie Johnson and Landon Donovan led the USA to a 2-0 victory over Mexico and its 7th consecutive World Cup berth.
To the players, to the federation, to everybody working in this environment, to you guys as well as the...
As the USA head coach Jurgen Klinsmann, Johnson broke a scoreless tie with a header in the 49th minute off a corner kick by Donovan. The Americans actually clinched their 10th appearance in the World Cup when Honduras tied Panama 2-2. Brazil beat Portugal in a friendly match before a crowd of more than 62,000 at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough as they scored a couple of first-half goals for the victory. WNBA, the Connecticut Sun home against Atlanta tonight. Phoenix made it 4 straight wins. They beat New York 80-76 to eliminate the Liberty from the playoff hunt. Diana Taurasi had 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists, and picked up her 9th technical foul of the season, so she will now have to miss tonight's game against first place Chicago. Minnesota clinched the top seed in the West. They beat Seattle 73-60. Maya Moore shot 7 of 10 from the floor and had 20 points. With 3 days between games, the Patriots must work fast to adjust to injuries to numerous players, including leading rusher Shane Vereen, before they take on the New York Jets in Foxborough tomorrow night. The Giants have signed running back Brandon Jacobs, who played for the Giants from 2005 to 2011 and was part of 2 Super Bowl winning teams. And on today's date, in 1918, Boston wins an early September World Series in 6 games. Yes, the World Series was over by September 11th. The season ended a month early due to manpower needs of World War I. Some of baseball's best left to fight overseas. Ty Cobb, Herb Pennock, Chris Speaker, George Sisler, Eddie Collins, and Christy Mathewson. 7:42, that's WILI Sports. Our weather forecast is next.
London Chowder Challenge, presented by F&F Distributors, is almost here. Come experience New London's best chowder from some of the area's best chefs, vying for bragging rights as the city's greatest chowder. The Great New London
Yeah.
Chowder Challenge will be held on Saturday,
It was like driving through pea soup coming down through Andover.
Here comes the 2-2. Playing in a miss, he got him. What he trying to that's not right.
Must be our magnetic personality messing with
I'm gonna
computers.
So I got this sports text here, baseball and stuff like that. And underneath it was the UConn soccer game. Well, when I got done with baseball, so I put the soccer thing away, and I knew I wanted to do it. I didn't have the stuff, so I just made it up.
Improvisation. It's what we all do. That's it.
And it sounded like I knew what I was talking about.
Great scenery down here in downtown Willimantic.
All right, weather time at 7:43. You've still got some fog, but not as dense as it was an hour ago here on Main Street. 67 our downtown temperatures. Pat Pagano has our weather forecast. All right, Pat, I'm going to put you on the spot. Will we or won't we hit 90 degrees today?
Close, but no cigar.
Why not? Because a lot of other forecasters are saying 90s. But I will also say they're forecasting more for the Hartford area, farther inland. Is the fact that we're a little closer to the water a factor in that?
That's a factor.
Thank you.
The other factor is the other factor is that, one, the time of the year it is. Two, cloud cover. Even if it's not, a low overcast like we have right now with fog, and it's high overcast, that will cut down on the potential. So I'm going to think again it's going to get very, very close to 90, but I don't think.
Rough cut. Rough cut studio.
I don't expect any rain either. Tonight there could be a shower, some showers, 65 to 70, and Thursday will be
all one word
with showers and thunderstorms. Could be early in the day and again late in the day. And Thursday night, Friday, any showers will give way to partly cloudy, breezy. Cooler weather in the low 70s. Saturday we start with sun, clouds, and breezy in the afternoon.
Shell and a picture of Paul and Linda McCartney.
And then nice and sunny on Sunday, reaching the low 70s.
That's an interesting
give you another
combination to
speculation
survive.
here
That's the
on
only two
something
things
that
that
I bet
survive.
none of your other weather
The depth of
gurus pointed out
the
today.
river and
The
everything.
sun angle
Melted
today
into a pile of
is
rubble.
the same sun angle as around
Yeah, I saw it
March
melted all
the
into the
30th.
sound cards.
And I'm guessing on March
Everything
30th,
was
you're not looking for a temperature of 90 degrees.
massive.
In other words, you don't
No.
have the sun angle you would in June or July.
That is absolutely correct.
Still is.
So
Still
yeah,
up there.
that's a real good
Still
point
no
too.
idea.
But
No.
I mean, there were
Until
plenty
Friday. We'll see what
of
happens
places
Friday.
yesterday that hit 90. Baltimore,
they got
Pittsburgh, Chicago.
The
So all
materials
these
and
places
whatever,
did
and
go
they okay to
90,
clear it
even
and
some
build
of
a
them
new
get
building.
above 90.
Thought they had.
So it's not out of the
So I
question.
think Friday
But
was
you
just about
need,
the
for us,
equipment.
you need perfect conditions at this time of the year. And I think they're a little less than
Unless
perfect. So
you're
let's see
fighting
how
that
we do.
now because
Speaking of perfection, I'd just like to
all
point
this
out the fact that
mess.
you and I were talking from this point on yesterday morning about that bigger batch of showers
That's what
after the
we're
first one
worried- that's what
came
he's
through
been
that was
worried
coming through
about.
Albany, that area. And even though it looked pretty impressive, you said you thought that it would break
Funny,
up
I'm looking at
later
this
in the
list,
morning.
and
Yeah,
I'm
we
like,
had a
yeah,
sprinkle here. There was
James
0.01 at
there,
Wyndham
I saw
Airport,
James
0.01 a few
there,
other places
you,
yesterday.
Ryan
So
Stones, I
I
saw
would
there,
say, Mr.
Edwards.
P, you nailed that
saw
one.
everybody
It
in the
did
first.
indeed
Almost,
fade
yeah,
out. Why
almost.
did it fade out
I
before it
didn't
got
see
here?
But I
There
saw
was
Buddy.
very,
I
very
saw
played
little
with them,
lift
most of them too.
as that
Yeah.
area came east. But you really do need
Played
the
with
air to be
them.
uplifted to keep the clouds
James,
high enough and the precipitation
Coco
process
Taylor,
going. So as it came
John
eastward,
Lee.
the upper air winds sort of sheared the
These
clouds.
guys
The clouds
here,
collapsed,
I saw all of them
and
lots of
after
times.
the clouds collapse, you
Uh,
forget about the precip because
I've
that
seen
too
Tom Petty there.
just disintegrates, and that's
I
exactly
don't.
what
I
it
didn't
is.
see Tom.
You sound like a Josh Groban song. You lift
Cheap
me
Trick
up.
played. I had just sold Bruce John.
Actually, you raised me up, but we just
So you
have
guys
poetic
play.
license here. 67 is our downtown temperature. Wyndham Airport still at 65, and their fog has now reduced to 1/8 mile visibility. It was quarter mile last hour. But Bradley's visibility has improved. They're at 70 degrees. Dew point is 67. We had 64 degrees in Coventry, and we checked in at Hampton with 66 earlier, now 67 degrees. They had 0.13 in the rain gauge, just like Wyndham Airport. They had 0.12 of that at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then another 0.01 came through at about noontime yesterday. We had 0.01 actually 0.03 in Wellington, which has 1/10 of a mile visibility in fog at 7 o'clock this morning, and 63 degrees. You could also see the humidity go up yesterday, as at 8 o'clock, almost this time yesterday morning, Wyndham Airport's dew point was 59, and by 4 o'clock in the afternoon it was 68. We didn't quite hit 70 for a dew point. It's down to 64 now. In fact, if you've got fog where you are, look at your thermometer, and that is what your dew point is. That's how fog is created. What do you think we should go to next here? Would you like me to tee you up on? And then I'll think of something.
We're easy. Hard. We're hard because we're easy.
Today's date in 1988, massive forest fires occurring in much of the northwestern USA continue to spew smoke into the upper atmosphere and into the prevailing westerlies, which have carried the thin veil of smoke across the country to the east coast. producing spectacular sunrises and sunsets as far east as New Jersey. 11 years ago, the interaction between Hurricane Gustav and the non-tropical system caused winds that affected areas of coastal New England, mainly in eastern New York and Massachusetts. The winds downed trees and power lines, and several homes and cars are damaged by fallen trees. About 19,000 homes lost power in Massachusetts. And Hurricane Edna made landfall in Massachusetts this date in 1954. The second Category 3 hurricane in 2 weeks in New England. It made 2 landfalls, the eye over Martha's Vineyard and Cape Cod, and then again on the coast of Maine, where very severe losses occurred. Winds recorded the hourly reading at 90 miles an hour at New Bedford Airport, as they had 112 in Milton, Mass., 125 at Chilmark on Martha's Vineyard. And the lowest barometric pressure ever recorded in southern New England was observed in Middletown during the great 1938 hurricane. That was later on in the month of September, with a pressure of 28.00 inches. That hurricane brought a pressure of 27.94 to Bellport, Long Island. But Hurricane Edna, on today's date, in 1954, produced a pressure of 28.02 at Edgartown on Martha's Vineyard. A report of 27.7 inches observed at Woods Hole in Falmouth, Mass. Based on the storm track, the pressure believed to be an error. Edna was the last Category 3 storm to hit New England. Happened on today's date in 1954. 7:49 at WILI with some clouds, some fog, but sun soon. As we talk music this morning with Mark Easton and Jimi Photon. Mark, who he and his brother lost their studios in Woodstock a few months ago, Rough Cut Studios. As we talked about a little bit of the background these guys had together. Mark, what about you musically when you first began to realize you had some special talent to be able to produce good music? Was it something like in elementary school or middle school? When did you start to realize you had a talent?
I did my first professional gig at 13.
He was born that way.
And got my first guitar at 11. I was playing probably at 10 years old I started. So I think it took me a while to gain some confidence, but I could always do it. I was very natural at it. You know, I remember taking some lessons from one of my local friends and ended up having to show him stuff within a couple weeks of what was going on. And so after that, I just kind of learned myself, just watching other people, listening. I played to the radio a lot. Listened to WILI a lot and played, because that was the only station we could get back then. That was the #1, you know. And I listened to
Hotel California. I heard it so many times on the station.
Yeah, and that was the good thing of being played all the time, though, because you could repeat the songs and I could learn. It was like having the record, so I could
Were there
play.
songs or artists that inspired you at that age?
Absolutely. The Beatles were the first, of course.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I, like every other kid in '64, I picked up. I wanted a guitar and I wanted to do that, you know. And that's really where it started.
In '64, when I saw him, I was like, "What the heck is that?"
Oh no!
Because they were doing something other people hadn't done, and for that matter, even 50 years.
See, I had already picked up a guitar by then because of Elvis. So
I was raised in a house full of like Mantovani, you know. So for me, hearing something like the Beatles, I mean, I was only like two and a half. I remember watching them on Ed Sullivan and going, "What the hell is that?" You know, it just seemed alien.
But as a musician, and they inspired me to want to learn the guitar and play the guitar, but their chords, their chord structure was unlike anything else that I'd heard before.
Exactly.
Randy Bachman figured out the opening chord to A Hard Day's Night. It's actually, I think, a D sus and a G sus 4 or something like that.
There's two chords together.
Two chords together. That's how they got that sound, because nobody could figure it out. And leave it to Randy Bachman, of course, from Bachman Turner Overdrive, and way before that, far better band, the Guess Who, which to me was they were like this continent's Beatles.
Exactly.
To me, I mean, I loved the Guess Who. I remember hearing American Woman on WILI when I was a little kid, and that was my favorite rock and roll song.
When I heard "Share the Land," I thought the Beatles had gotten back together.
Yeah. And Laughing in These Eyes. And,
yeah.
And the one that actually inspired the Wally Lamb book, because the Wally Lamb title, because he heard me playing it on the air. One of my favorite all-time radio stories, by the way, was "She's Come Undone." And while that wasn't a real rock and roll song, it had a little jazz in it. It had a really unique sound to it.
Absolutely.
They were way ahead of their time. Yeah, Burton Cummings too, man. What a voice. I mean, you know, it gives me goosebumps just thinking in my head, hearing the stuff in my head. Just being a musician, you hear the stuff in your head all the time. It gets annoying.
And being a musician back then, all those different sounds, you tried to emulate them, and you tried to be as close to that as you could. That's what we did anyway as a cover band. We didn't have our own thing yet, so it was all, how close can we get to that record? So you start to develop your own thing after a while, because you're doing all these different styles and different voices and different things, you know.
You remember the first club you played?
The very first gig I did was at a small place called the Candlelight Inn in Marlborough, Connecticut, or East Hampton, Connecticut, near Marlborough. I don't know why they call that East Hampton, but that's what it is. And it was for some local bikers.
Just a little geography. East Hampton is west of Hampton.
Right. That's really strange. But anyways,
I always thought that was kind of off.
That is off. But that's where I played at 13 years old. My first gig. My uncles were actually in the audience that night. I remember that because they were bikers at the time. Uncle Bob and Uncle Ron.
He was a hoot.
Jimmy, what was your first gig?
The first gig I got paid for was I was working as an upright bass player for the Lebanon Chorale. I think that was what it was. It was a gig my sister got me. She was
The chorale, like where horses go around?
no, like chorale, like a big chorus.
Like the Harry Simeon chorale, the little drummer boy.
Yeah, it was like the slow setting on a Leslie, you know, chorale. Actually, it was a big chorus out in Lebanon. My sister is a classically trained musician, you know, and she was like, you know, I think it was local 403, the musicians union here. You know, she was very professional, and it was like she wanted to get me a gig, so I got a gig as an upright bass player, as an accompanist, and played guitar, I think, on one song. I can't remember what it was. Back then, I was a bass player. See, like, big difference between me and Mark. Mark was a guitar player. He learned chords and, you know, went outward from there. I started on cello, so I started with single notes. So
you're sort of a Yo-Yo Ma wannabe.
Actually, there was a priest here in town. I was raised Roman Catholic, although
you could do worse.
Yeah, I guess I could. I'd have to try probably though. But anyways, there was a priest here in town named Joe Kugler. That was a family friend. That was an amazing cellist. And to me, if you play a cello right, it kind of sounds like a brownish, overdriven electric guitar, you know, and that sound kind of stuck in my head. And then a couple of years later, I mean, I heard Black Sabbath on Black Sabbath for the first time. When I heard that opening note of that first song, that was it. I was hooked. I mean, at that point, I decided I wanted to play guitar. It took a couple of years till I got one. My first real guitar was an electric. It was a Tisco Del Rey.
Really?
And my dad was like, no electric guitars in the house, because at one point I would have ended up being a bass player. But he didn't want to let me get an electric Guild electric bass we found in a pawn shop, so I got stuck with an acoustic guitar, so it's his fault. You know, and
sure, blame Daddy.
Well, let me tell you my electric guitar thing, and I showed you the picture of my Gibson from those days. It's a sweet instrument. But the first thing I got, again inspired by the Beatles, was a folk guitar. I don't remember exactly what model it was, but when we wanted to get into the electronic sound to emulate the Beatles, I don't think I did this, but one of my buddies out in California, where I was growing up in Glendale, he came up with a way to disassemble an earplug. In other words, like earphones, and take the little thing that goes inside your ear canal off, and then we would tape that onto the body of the guitar, and then plug the wire to an amp, and that's worked as an amplifier, as a pickup.
Yeah, sure
and we were able to, blast out a folk guitar.
I actually built a pickup out of that stuff one time. You know, using those little things. It worked.
Wow.
I mean, it was kind of low impedance, but it had one raucous kind of distortion sound to it. It was great.
Which is good, yeah.
So Wayne remembers the days that we used to plug the bass, the guitar, and the microphone into one amplifier.
Well, everything changed with the sound of electric guitars and rock and roll with one word, 4 letters, F-U-Z-Z. As soon as fuzz came into the picture, I mean, the first real fuzz was probably the Rolling Stones song, wasn't it?
I think so. I think that's the first one I heard anyway. But not the first distortion I heard was rumble.
Well, yeah, that was a different kind of distortion. Fuzz was different. Fuzz allowed you to interact with your amplifier in an entirely new way. And by the time Hendrix perfected it, you know, it was a completely different world.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Beatles' Revolution was all distorted.
Yeah.
That was
by
fuzz.
design.
Yeah. Put it into the board and overdrive the board itself with fuzz. You know, but I mean, it's the only way you can get that kind of sound.
Lennon was looking for that sound. I think he was looking for a modern sound that we have now, but he couldn't get it back then.
My favorite story about John was when they were recording one of the songs. I think it might have been "I'm the Walrus." He wanted to use a Leslie on his voice, but what he wanted them to do was hang him upside down and spin him around in the room while he was singing. And I just thought that was, you know, that was interesting.
Speaking of guitars, it seemed to me that you gentlemen brought some musical instruments into the radio station here today.
Well, we never know. We got to work them
Were you
out.
planning on using those at some point?
If you would like
If
us
you
to,
want us to.
we could do that.
I think that may be coming up next with our guest this morning, Jimi, Photon, Mark Easton, talking about
Lucky
local
world.
music and the good old days of music. And we got a good old drummer in there that's about ready to do the news here. So we'll talk more music with the guys and maybe hear some music after a break for the news, sports, and the weather on 14 WILI Willimantic.
67 degrees, a busy public hearing in Scotland tomorrow night.
I felt so bad
And I meant
last
to bring
week.
my guitar in and I forgot to. 5 o'clock in the morning, I wasn't thinking guitar.
I actually put the sound on my easy chair, so I had to move it
Morning of Mike
in
Morrison.
order to check my
The town of
computer in the
Scotland
morning.
holds a public hearing tomorrow evening to discuss several
I
major
felt so
items.
bad. Last
Meeting
week
will
we're talking
consider the
about
purchase of
Oasis.
attractive land
I can't think of what the
consisting
drummer's
6
name
acres
is.
on Brook Road, formerly
Mike,
known
right?
as the
Mike
Rasinow
Oasis.
property.
My
The
brother
cost
was
of
the
the town
drummer.
will be $70,000.
Barry?
Barry was the drummer in Oasis.
Ordinance authorizing
He
the
was in
withdrawal
Oasis.
from
I don't
the
know if he was the
Wyndham Council of
original
Governments
drummer,
and
but he
joined with
definitely
the
was.
Northeast Council of Governments. Another item to consider is
See my
authorizing the
right?
Board of
Yeah,
Selectmen
see my
of Scotland
Gibby.
to join with the towns of Chaplin and Hampton
Armalette,
to
Jack
conduct a
Hills.
school analysis
Yeah,
study.
I thought Mike
Meeting
was playing
starts at
drums
7 tomorrow
at one
evening
point.
in the Scotland Volunteer
Yeah.
Memorial
He
Hall
may have started it,
on
but Barry
Brook
took
Road.
over.
Willimantic police have released the identity of the man found dead in the Willimantic
One
River
owner,
last week.
baby.
You still have
37-year-old
Remember the one I had?
death is considered
Low mileage, mid
accidental
condition. I
at
just
this
paid
time.
$100 to a
But
guy
police
in
ask
Norton
anyone
who
with
got it
information
spruced up.
pertaining to the incident
And
to
there's
call
me
them
playing it
at
in
465-3135.
Going through that amp,
Well,
which I
President
heat
Obama
amp, which I
addressed the
built.
nation last
Fisher
night trying
speakers.
to
Oh, I
make
built
a case
stuff
for
too.
a
Got more pictures
military
of it,
option
they're
in
not-
Syria,
there they are.
but
Look at
also
that.
admitting
Wow.
that
I think that's
convincing
a-
enough
that's
people
a late
remains a
70s.
big struggle. Connecticut U.S. Senator Chris Murphy says a diplomatic solution offered by Russia is worth considering.
It essentially answers the question of whether the
Yeah, I can't make them talk like you
international
guys.
community can stand up and peacefully.
You guys know the name of a country musician named Charlie Allen?
The president says
He's got
part of the
CDs
military
out.
forces
He's
Show me a
pretty good.
picture of him.
He was a guest here 6 months ago. A buddy of mine who got to know him. He plays at Cypress, which is a music club in Middletown.
Okay.
Route 17.
Cypress. I played there.
Yeah, they do a lot of local music. They do a lot of that.
Tim Valley.
Making phone calls to institutions within
Played there
my own
with
community of
Kenny
Stanford.
too, I
That
think.
they needed to be guarded.
I might have.
The train
There was another
station,
room right next to
the
Lebovo.
massive trading floor in the downtown of Stanford. I remember getting calls from Washington and New York.
So this buddy of mine, he actually plays as part of the Cypress All Stars. Charlie Allen in Nashville. He comes up there and plays. So my guitar is kind of on the market.
with
I'm not
Connecticut ties were
actively,
among the nearly
you know,
3,000 killed in those
Craigslist and stuff like
attacks.
that. But
WILI
I
News
spread the
Time
word to guys like you.
67 degrees.
I told
Back
Jimmy
with
last
more
week.
news after this from Charter Communications.
Okay.
And I took it down there because Charlie had to mention it. It wasn't so much Charlie had it, but he's friends with the actor Steven Seagal, who apparently has a huge guitar collection.
He does.
And we did kind of like, we put some feelers out on that. So he starts hacking around, and then he goes on stage with my guitar, which he's never played before, and oh my God, did he make that puppy talk. Holy shit, it was really good. And by the way, your four-letter word with F-U, I'm going, oh my, F-U, I'm going, oh.
He was ready. He had his finger on
You
the
said
beeper.
fuzz. I'm thinking,
Oh,
I said,
you were thinking.
where is this going?
I
didn't think you'd do it, but I said, oh my God.
Oh no, I wasn't gonna do that. F-U-Z-Z, fuzz, man. I'm the fuzzbox kid from Willimantic. You know what I'm saying?
He builds them, so.
Yeah, that's what I do. Is I build custom fuzzes for people. And for me, I've got Jesus. I've given away most of the ones I've built over the last couple of years already, or sold some here and there, which allows me to buy more stuff to build more. So.
So I'm announcing today that I'm opening an exploratory committee for the race for governor in 2014.
If he decides to run, Foley, who spent $10 million of his own money in the 2010 race, says he would plan to qualify for public financing, although he's not sure yet if he would accept it. Governor Malloy, meanwhile, has not officially announced that he's running for election. Well, progress in recent years in retaining freshmen is just one of the reasons UConn President Susan Herb says the school has risen in the U.S. News and World Report ranking of the best public universities in the country.
Generally, it's a good indicator
Took me a while to get it,
of especially strength on the
It's that
undergraduate
weird
level
triplet
student success.
thing is what
So
ends
it
up
doesn't
showing
measure things like productivity or fundraising,
Do you
but
do it like
stays
this?
very close to the quality of undergraduate education, the quality of student body.
Rising from the 21st spot last year, UConn can now brag about being the 19th best public university in the nation. Patricia Snyder's been appointed as the town of Mansfield's new Human Services Director. Snyder begins
I don't
working
remember
in
how I did it,
Mansfield
to
on
tell you the
September
truth.
30th.
I might have done it with a cable on.
Grunwald, who
It was a
recently
long time ago.
WILI News Time 8:05,
Slow it
67
down enough
degrees.
speed,
Sports
play it on
and
the
weather
bass or
on the way.
something.
Never had to do that.
Good to see if you play with Oasis.
Yeah.
He gave me the one finger salute, so he used to have something else going on. It's not the first time I've gotten a one finger salute from him.
So what are we gonna play? I don't want to play.
Some blues. We've got about 5 minutes to come up with something.
Just do a shuffle. Jimmy Reed, or we can do
I'm going up.
or we can do that one, that Muddy Waters one that I do there.
Ceremonies this morning to mark what happened 12 years ago today.
Go to the bakery.
Bagpipes playing at 3-0 in New York. Ceremonies will begin the next hour in the Pentagon.
Sounds like For You Blue.
And in New York.
Relatives of 9/11 victims returned to the World Trade Center site in Lower Manhattan to mark 12 years since the deaths of their loved ones. A long recitation of names was paused 6 times, as has become the custom to mark the moments of Chicago.
That's Muddy Waters.
Field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
Almost the same as Sweet Chicago.
I got to love somebody.
President Obama to attend the ceremony.
But every year, famous Muddy Water gets the key to the city of Willimantic.
Oh, you got the
On a
Peter.
boat catch.
I never knew that.
You didn't know that?
I never knew that.
Wait till you hear this one. We used to broadcast Shaboom concerts here. We got the reel-to-reel tapes on. We converted a few of them. John Tewitt's kind of in control of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Arnold Bocash, who's probably never been to Shaboom in his life. Check this out.
Thank you very much.
That's the mayor.
At this time, I would like to bring a greeting from the little city down the road, a couple miles, Willimantic. This being my first time at Cebu, being so close, I feel ashamed of myself that I've never been here many, many times. I'd like to at this time congratulate the boys and girls that are running this establishment and for the wonderful job they've done here, and the folks that's right out here. And at this day and time, I know that Muddy Waters has many, many keys from big cities. But this being a little city, I'm presenting Muddy with a small key to a small city, and he's most welcome to come in and open any door.
Loot the place.
I love it.
I remember John telling me a story about Jimi being there with
Muddy.
Oh, it's a
Thank you, Mr. Well.
Hey, Muddy.
Thank you very much.
I know that voice.
Get up now, that's a call. Up now.
Hi, Tom.
Ladies and gentlemen, I received a lot of keys to the church, but this key means just as much or more, and the big keys I have received from Syria. And again, I thank the mayor and thank all you people very much. So we don't have a problem.
Right on.
1978, McKinley Morganfield. How about that? You heard the story about that. It was more of a promotion. That they wanted people to go out there, and so they started spreading the word. We're going to get Muddy Waters key of the city. So they had sent Arnold Cash goes up there. Then they get there, and he didn't bring a key. And they go, oh, shit, what are we going to do? So I forget exactly what room it was. Like upstairs, they have the rooms. You know, it was like room 205. It was the key to room 205 upstairs.
I love it.
Well, I've had Lefty on here a lot, and you know, it's like today that you don't know where it's going to go. You just set him up and start telling stories.
Yeah.
I think I've had him on like 7 times, and they're all on
they're
our
all
website,
different stories.
just like your thing was last week, and this is going to be. And you sit there and listen to him telling stories. It's like, oh my God, like the great stories never stop.
There's a lot of them. I was blessed to be, or cursed to be part of some of them.
It's lobby time.
3. Red Sox players Tampa Bay 6:25 pregame coverage on
Oh yeah,
I
remember that.
Yankees
Leonard
played
Cohen was
Boston
playing. I was there that
versus
night.
Washington. UConn men's soccer team
At about
played
midnight.
Washington.
Or maybe somebody thought Leonard Cohen was
USA
Just
qualified
tons
for
of
the
stuff
World
going
Cup
on,
with
and
a
nobody's
2-0
Leonard
win over
Cohen.
Mexico.
At midnight.
WNBA tonight,
Morning show, but
Connecticut
still
Sun
midnight. Leonard
hosts
Cohen
Atlanta.
goes on mic and he says,
Now let's check out the
there are
latest
no ghosts
forecast
here
brought to you by
It's his way of
Calypso
saying, if
Blue.
you came to see Dylan, get out of here.
These are some of
But I
our
was impressed by
conditions we
Leonard.
had for the minute number
And he played the next night. I came back when the river was going. It was spectacular. It was really good.
Humid
All right, I'm going to give you like a 5-second countdown here, and then you just work your magic. Do whatever you want to do.
What do we play?
We'll just do that. Do the thing we're just doing in
Find a
G.
song yet?
in the middle 70s. Wind 60s.
And then we'll do further on up the road.
This is the ULG snap. You got to bring up WILI.
Hi, this
Big
is
deal.
Mark. What's up, Luke? Need to close your pool for the season? We can make your job a lot easier. Want to close the pool yourself? We can help you through the process. Want the pros to do it? Call us to schedule an appointment. What's up, Luke? Pool and spa, close to home on Route 6 in Columbia.
67
All right, boys,
degrees
5,
at 8:11.
4,
Mike Morissette,
3,
WIL.
2, 1, go.
Further on up the road, someone's gonna hurt you like you hurt me. Further on up the road, someone's gonna hurt you like you hurt me. Further on up the road, darling, just you wait and see. You're gonna reap just what you sow. That old saying sure is true. Gonna reap just what you sow. That old saying sure is true. Just like you mistreat someone, baby, someone's gonna mistreat you. Oh, you've been lying, pretty baby. Someday you're gonna be crying. You've been lying, pretty baby. Someday you're gonna be crying. Further on up the road, you'll find out I'm not lying. Play it, Photon.
please.
Now you're laughing, pretty baby. Someday you're gonna be crying. You've been laughing, pretty baby. Someday you're gonna be crying. Been around up the road. You'll find out I wasn't lying.
Mark Easton and Jimi Photon had a little fun, a little jam there. You sort of improvised that, didn't you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. And what instruments were you playing there, Jimmy? What do you got?
This is actually it's really ugly, the headstock on this thing. A friend of mine had loaned it to a girl he knew, and one of her friends stomped on the headstock and splintered it. So he brought it to me here, I'll take it off so you can actually see it. If you look at the back, most of it was pretty much destroyed. And what I ended up doing was I kind of fit all the splinters back together with some crazy glue and got it lined up and clamped it in between a couple of clear CD covers so I could see where I had to apply pressure to get it right, and let it dry for about 6 months in the attic.
6 months?
Yeah, maybe not that long. I exaggerate sometimes. But once I took the thing off and cleaned it up, partially, it was playable again, so I've just been using it ever since. So I call it Scar, but this is a 1974-ish Epiphone EP120, I think.
Why do you call it Scar? Because it's scarred?
Because it's scarred.
And that was our next question, because it's got a thing there above the frets, and it says Scar, right?
Yeah, I wrote that on there with a Sharpie, just,
Mark, can you top that story?
I don't know. Not really. This is just my Aria acoustic parlor guitar.
I love that guitar.
And it's really nice and bright and stuff.
How come you're using the capo and Jimmy's not?
Just for that particular song, I wanted to play first position, and Jimmy.
Much more of a blues player than me. I'm a little more psychedelic, I think they call it.
But you can adapt to whatever guitar you got.
Yeah, whatever
or whatever cello you've got.
Or
when was the last time you played a cello?
The last time I played a cello, oh man. Actually, if you go on the internet to a place called icompositions.com and look for me there, I'm Pink Jimi Photon.
Jimi.
Jimi. All one word, Pink Jimi Photon. There's a song on there called Titania. It's also on my YouTube, where I made a video about Sid Barrett from the Pink Floyd for it. That's the last time I actually played a cello. But it's basically, it's a cello. It's interesting because, what do you call those words, or whatever, where it's the same forward and back? I can't think of the name of the...
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like the word, like the name Hannah is spelled the same forwards and backwards.
Okay.
Or the rock and roll band Aha.
Okay. Well, this song is one of those. If you play it forwards or backwards, it is the exact same thing. But anyways, it's called Titania. Now you see the trickeries of the studio come in handy then, because in that particular case, what I did was I reached a point where I wanted it to reverse in the song, and I cut everything off after that, copied it, and pasted it backwards. So studio trickery.
And speaking of YouTube, you guys mentioned this to me earlier. How about palindrome? Is that the word, by the way?
Palindrome, that's the word. A sonic palindrome.
Isn't Google great? But
I'm a huge Zappa fan, so anything weird that I can do, Xenochrony,
we were
stuff
talking,
like that.
before we started today, we were talking off air about Shabu, we were talking about the great acts, you talked about Police, who looked like roadies when they came in, the group.
I did, yeah.
He did.
And I mentioned the fact that if you go to the Aerosmith Dream On page, not the Aerosmith Wikipedia page, but actually have a page for the song Dream On, which was their first big pop hit as well, about 3 paragraphs down, it says, the song Dream On was first played live at the Shabu Inn in Willimantic, Connecticut. I think that's pretty cool. And you guys told me that there's actually a video of that on YouTube?
Yes.
Tell me more about it.
It's really,
Well,
really.
you can keep playing if you want. That's pretty good.
I don't know if I can play and talk at the same time, you know.
Like chewing gum and patting your
whistling and breathing, you know. The video is very low quality. It's not the whole song, and mostly all you can really see, you can see Steven Tyler in the spotlight singing.
Is that before he was an American Idol judge?
Oh, way before. He was still a good-looking Spanish guy back then, you know, instead of a you know, a good-looking older Spanish guy. But you can see him and Tom Hamilton pretty relatively. I mean, enough to tell who they are, and you can hear the song. I mean, it was powerful. I mean, just unbelievable. I mean, and Tyler's voice, even though on this particular recording, the recording quality is horrible.
It's terrible.
But my God, the voice is there. I mean, I listened to that song one time for the first time ever, really closely, just zoned in on it while I was driving to a gig about a year ago. You know, in the car, the radio cranked up just the right level, and listening to all the nuances of Steven Tyler's voice on that song. My God. I mean, I love people like Freddie Mercury and stuff. He was a great rock and roll singer, but the epitome of the hard rock singer of all time has got to be Steve Tyler.
I watched them rehearse that song, you know.
I bet you.
I was at Shabu playing in the front room with Lenny Breinstein, and Steven came in and watched us for a few minutes, clapped his hands after we did, like, Down by the River, I think, by, you know, Neil Young. And then they went in, and all of a sudden we had to stop playing because they were rehearsing, you know, because they were really loud. And they were rehearsing Dream On when I went in to watch them. And they played it that night. That was that night.
So you wanted the little Dream On there?
Oh,
just a little bit.
I just know bits and pieces of it. I don't even know if I can remember that much of it.
That's pretty good, especially since it's done on a keyboard on the record.
That's about as far as I can probably remember.
Mark, that's still pretty good.
That's still pretty good.
You're not surprised. You know what this guy can do.
I know what
this
he can
is
do.
like, you know, an ungodly
Absolutely.
hour for a rock musician to even be awake.
No,
so.
you're just getting in. Right?
I'm very pleased that he even remembered that far. So.
That was great. Well, and I remember David Foster telling the story that they had already booked them, and then they began to take off in the Boston area.
Absolutely.
They were getting big during the time that they were booked.
Yes.
And so here you've got a really up and coming, and that was one of the first big names they had at Shabu.
I will try and find a video clip, that video clip I'm telling you about. I know I had posted it on my Facebook like about a year ago. If I can find it, if it's still up there, if it hasn't been taken down by, you know, some kind of ridiculous over-the-top piracy laws and things in this nation that I don't want to get into.
YouTube will do that, by the way.
They do. I mean, it's like try and watch the Beatles on YouTube. Sorry, this content has been removed by EMI in your area. I'm sorry, this digital rights millennium stuff is crap. I mean, at one point, you had to pay. If you were an artist making music that you wanted to just give to the people, you had to pay to be able to distribute your own music for free. This is ridiculous. I mean, then places like Song Planet started popping up, and Indie Hits Productions and things like that, you know. SoundClick, you know, and it changed. But I think the whole idea of trying to moderate what people are going to do on the internet's kind of far-fetched, you know. I mean, I hear about the file sharing. Yes, that's an issue. But the way I look at it is if I buy a record album, and I'm talking like vinyl, you know, I'm paying for the rights to be able to listen to that music. I might be buying the vinyl. The music belongs to the artist. He's leasing me the right to listen to it, in my opinion. But because I'm paying for this, if I want to make a copy of it for myself or a friend, I don't see what the problem should be with that. Especially seeing as how usually if you make a copy for someone, half the time they're going to go out and buy it anyway. I think the whole thing's just over the top. End of my political rant.
Jimi from Photon along with Mark Easton this morning. And by the way, your Facebook page is great. You do a lot of good stuff on that. And while we're talking about Shabu a little bit, the whole Shabu Facebook page is phenomenal. There's people who bring back memories and artists and all that. And of course, on our website, which is, by the way, this link is linked on our morning show guest page for today.
I have
got
your
the whole list,
Facebook link
which
to
I
mine,
appreciate that. I brought the list out here for these guys and all the acts that have played Shabu, and there's hundreds of them we have on this list, which I gave you guys a copy of here today.
Absolutely.
But of course, Shabu is kind of the poster child for local club people playing at clubs. But I'm wondering, when you guys were up and coming, and even after that, tell me some of the other hot spots that you played here in Eastern Connecticut. Where were these places?
Connecticut.
Well, even Connecticut.
David's in Manchester. When it was open, the Club Vogue just up the road, that was a good place. Husky Blues and Stores was a good place
Good
for
old
us.
Butch, right?
The Palace in Stafford
that's
Springs.
where the Pink Salami Grinder came from. It's the Palace. We got to tell you the Pink Salami story sometime.
Now,
Maybe I
I
should
think
tell them
Jimmy's
now.
too young, but Mark, did you play A's?
I went to see Great Controversy. I snuck in to see them there, but I never got to play there.
Out by the airport. That was
By
a
the
high
airport,
place.
yeah.
I've heard stories about
I heard many bands there.
all the Yukon men's basketball players would wind up out
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Just to watch the music, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so now we have no more Shabu. So now, where is the hot spot when people want to see live local talent?
Right now, here in Willimantic, at least, it's the Lucky Frog.
Yeah.
And at times, Pub 32 does some decent stuff.
Where you can come out to my neck of the woods.
Or out to the Hammer Down in Manchester, which is only really 20 minutes away, 25 minutes away.
And every
that's
Thursday
a great place.
night, I host a open jam there where our entire purpose is to make everyone who comes in, well, first off, nobody leaves without singing the blues, but to make every person that comes in feel comfortable, and regardless of their skill level or instrument, our job is to make them sound like rock stars, and that's what we try to do there every week. And we have a lot of fun there, have some great musicians. We've had Jimi Bell from Joint Forces and House of Lords and countless other bands, and he almost ended up being the guitar player for Geezer Butler during one of the breaks in the Black Sabbath years. We've had Johnny Frizzell from Little Village and Fountainhead sit in. Of course, we've had Mark, I had Dick Wagner out a few months ago from Alice Cooper and Lou Reed. You never know who's going to show up. So
Same thing with the Wednesday night jam we do every Wednesday.
Yeah.
Hosted by the Fred Sinclair All Stars with Johnny Rousey.
Which we're both proud to be members of the Sinclair All Stars.
We're pushing that a little bit.
He does a great job promoting local music,
Yes,
too.
he does.
I go back to your story you wanted to tell there.
The Pink Salami.
The Pink Salami.
Oh boy!
I want to hear your version.
I'm going to clean it up a little bit because we were a bunch of.
Doesn't involve Holbrook Street, does it?
No, no. This actually it didn't happen in Willimantic, so
this was in Stafford.
There was a place that another local boy named James Jaybird Morosini had with his brother David up in Stafford called the Palace, which is open again. And at one point, somehow or other, Mark and myself and Dean Cipher and Andre Corsini and Eric Zippy Hager from the local band called the 11th Section that I had started back in like 1982 that would normally back my little brother Todd Meikle up, ended up playing with Mark at this place in Stafford Springs. And one night we were having a lot of fun, and we were in the dressing room. Now Jay, of course, didn't want to pay for heat in the dressing room. It was always cold as hell in there. And we noticed one night that there was a half a salami grinder that had been there for at least 6 months. And there was also a can of pink spray paint. And somehow we ended up getting inspired. And I remember correctly, Mark took a broken drumstick, skewered the salami grinder, which still looked fresh because it was so cold in the dressing room, and mounted it on a beer bottle, spun it around, and painted it pink. Jaybird comes in and goes, "What the is that?" And we go, "It's the Pink Salami Grinder." So he goes, "Wow, that'd be a great name for a band." So we became the Palace Pink Salami
We
Grinder.
stuck it into the wall. It was hanging on the dressing
For
room
years.
wall for quite a while.
Yeah, it might still be there for all we know. But eventually the Palace closed down, and we just kept on playing gigs, so we just became the Pink Salami Grinder. And now it's the Pink Salami Grinder All-Star Blues Review, because we never know who's going to show up to sit in with us.
Mark, can you top that one?
I don't think I would even want to try. Not for names of bands, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, it's not something I would have chosen as a name for a band, but for some reason it worked.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
and sometimes that's what you need. Something that's just bizarre that'll stick in people's minds.
Right, more so than some common thing that people are going to forget tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's like my band these days. You know, I mean, it's like once you hear the name, you remember it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but
Now you, Mark,
it's been interesting.
you, Mark, still play in what incarnation today? What's the name? Do you have a band name?
I have several bands that I'm in. I'm in a band called Sweet Daddy Cool Breeze, which is the blues band I've been touring with for the last 25 years, plus years.
Yeah.
We tour up and down the East Coast. We're going to be going back to Germany next year and France.
I think the Beatles started there, didn't they?
Yeah. These guys are big stars over in Europe. You know?
And I also play with of course, with Avalanche. I'm hoping that we're going to be resurrecting with the members that are left. I play also with the Sinclair All Stars every Wednesday night. I play with with Jimi and the Big Salami Grinder, and with Smoke and Herb every once in a while.
That's Mark Easton along with Jimi Photon. We're just talking music. We'll get a little Avalanche talking here later on this morning, too, after break for the news, sports, and the weather on WILI.
At 8:29.
You probably had more, but
that's all right. I understand.
Former Alderman Deb Hinge defeated fellow City Council member Charlie Gaskowitz, the endorsed Democrat, in the primary that puts her a step closer to the mayor's seat in Norwich. Man found dead in the Willimantic River last week has been identified as 37-year-old body on card. State officials say parts of the Patchogue State Forest that were closed on August 27th after mosquitoes with triple E were discovered is reopening. Details coming up at 9. Sports and weather follow. Mike Huckabee.
It's hard
This
to
is
let
the
the
Huckabee Report for
mosquitoes
Wednesday.
live this
Today
kind of
is a day
situation,
that will
huh?
live in infamy.
How we
also
doing?
in the annals of heroism.
Hey, was that A's?
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember that place. There wasn't much out there. That's where the radio station was too.
Mm-hmm.
In the building right down the street. Boy.
Oh boy, that was
when I told that story about the Yukon.
I was 18. Anybody could go in there.
When I went, the earliest I remember, WILI was just up the street. I remember you used to have the booths right on Main Street.
Willimantic, yeah.
That's right.
Well, when I told that story about the Yukon basketball players going there, you know where I got that from? Wes Balasupia.
Yeah.
Wes told me many times about the days he'd go out there, and he would tell me that they'd be out there, they'd be cocked. Now, if they did that now, well, Tyler Olander, they won't tolerate it.
It's a great show.
Thanks.
Yeah, I guess when I invited you back, I knew what I was doing. Now, here's my plan for this segment. I would like to mention that video, and is there, by the way, I'll probably ask this on the air, but how can people see it? Is it for
We're still working on that. It just
right now you just got to watch the parts of it on YouTube.
On the web, yeah. Just the parts that are on YouTube.
It was fascinating to watch. I love to see how you compose.
Have you seen any of the outtakes yet, like the Michael blooper reel?
No, there's going to be, when we put the DVD
good.
together, which is it's still being put together right now, it's going to have a separate reel of bloopers and outtakes and other interviews, complete interviews.
The Michael blooper reel is really funny because there's parts of it where it's like he is intentionally screwing it up over and over and over.
I know.
It's a great. It's like watching one of the Three Stooges. Well, actually, watching you and Barry and him. It's kind of like watching he was Mo. You're Curly, and then
I actually like watching it now because it helps me to remember him that way instead of the way he was at the very end.
Well, and here's this wouldn't happen if it weren't 9/11. However, the first plane hit the tower at 8:46, and I'm not exactly sure what my timetable is going to be with the sports and the weather and stuff.
Yeah.
I think 8:46. I might have to do a little moment of silence.
Absolutely.
But I might segue that into having, because this is the day when people tell their stories. And I don't know if you guys might not have heard what I did at 6:45 this morning, but 5 days after 9/11, a buddy of mine said, they opened it up. You want to go down? I said, no, I want to be a rubberneck. He said that Warner Wolf on New York TV on that Saturday night said, come see what they've done to our city. And reluctantly I went. It was a seminal moment. It was incredible. There's a whole summary on our homepage, a link on our homepage, and actually I've got that text here. When I'm doing sports, you can read this.
Okay.
There's also pictures that on our website, not here. But It was amazing. I didn't read all that, but I read most of it at 6:45 this morning.
Okay.
I do every year.
Right.
And then at 9, I'm going to do a thing with Mike because I like to tell a story of what it was like for us here. It was right around this time in the morning it started happening, and we had to start making some decisions too. And there was some stuff with our satellite that I didn't know what to do. But I also remember, this is why we come up too, but you're glued to the TV the rest of the day. I go home, and about 7:30 that night, that Tuesday night, I'm saying, would you stop showing the towers coming down? I don't want to see it, because they showed it every minute.
Yeah, it started
and the
becoming
next
painful.
day, the networks all said, we weren't going to show it anymore.
Yeah.
But I felt that way too. I didn't want to see it. I went down to the memorial last summer, 13 months ago, and wow.
Yeah, I remember sitting home when that stuff happened. My wife's mom worked for the job service down in London, so they got a call instantly. Went out over the federal whatever. Right. Instantly, we knew that we were under attack.
8:34 WILI. Good morning, Wayne Norman. Checking out Sports 4 Wednesday. A good return for Clay Buchholz, who hadn't pitched in a major league game since June the 8th. Boston manager John Farrell thought Buchholz might be a little rusty after a long layoff. Turns out that was not the case for the Red Sox right-hander, who allowed 3 hits over 5 innings in his first start since early June. And the AL East leading Red Sox beat Tampa Bay 2-0 last night, getting just enough runs off the Cy Young winner David Price. Clay Buchholz goes to 10-0 in the season, going 5 strong innings, and said he felt good. Probably the biggest out that he got was striking out Jose Molina with 2 on to end the second inning. Johnny Gomes and Jared Saltalamacchia each drove in a run for the Red Sox. And the catcher Saltalamacchia said that Buchholz was better than he expected. And manager John Farrell says Buchholz's return to the rotation is huge for the Red Sox. And Ryan Dempster goes for the Sox in Game 2 of that series in Tampa Bay tonight, facing 8-3 Alex Cobb, who carried the game at 6:25 on WILI. Jacoby Ellsbury, out with the injured foot, is 30 years old today. Sox lead Tampa Bay now by 8.5 games. The injuries keep mounting for the Yankees, who keep finding ways to win in spite of a roster shuffle that will likely continue to the final day of the season. Alfonso Soriano hit 2 home runs, including a tie-breaking shot in the 8th, and the Yankees rallied past Baltimore 7-5. Joe Angel on WBAL. Chris Davis hit his major league leading 49th home run for the Orioles and raised his RBI total to 126. Baltimore led 4-1 in the 5th before faltering and before Soriano took over as manager, Joe Girardi. And the injuries, Alex Rodriguez pulled his hamstring while trying to score. Well, he did indeed score, but he said it was pretty good after the game, after icing it. Starter Ivan Nova left the game in the 6th with sore triceps, and catcher Austin Romine had to leave with a concussion. So the Yankees doing some musical chairs, and they did give a sign that Derek Jeter might not be back anytime soon. They obtained slick fielding shortstop Brendan Ryan from the Seattle Mariners for a player to be named. Andy Pettit starts for the Yankees against Baltimore right-hander Scott Feldman tonight in the 3rd game of that 4-game series. Yankees 2 back in the wild card race now. Baltimore and Cleveland both a game and a half off the pace as Cleveland lost to Kansas City 4-3. Kansas City 3 games back in the wild card chase. On the National League, where Washington downed the Mets again, this time by a 6-3 score, as Jason Worth kept up his power surge with a home run and 2 doubles. Zach Wheeler goes for the Mets against Washington tonight. Cardinals still hold a 1-game lead over Pittsburgh in the National Central after the Cardinals 4-2 win over Milwaukee and the Pirates 5-4 triumph at Texas. Third-ranked UConn men's soccer team played to a scoreless draw with the 10th-ranked Washington Huskies last night at Maroney Stadium. UConn goalkeeper Andre Blake played all 110 minutes, needing just 2 saves to keep Washington at bay. Huskies now 2-0-1, while Washington stands at 3-0-1 on the young season. USA men's soccer team clinched its 7th straight World Cup appearance, getting second-half goals from Eddie Johnson and Landon Donovan for the now traditional 2-0 home qualifying win over Mexico. And that would be Landon Donovan, who scored one of the goals for Team USA in its win yesterday. Meanwhile, in a game that didn't really count, Brazil beat Portugal in a friendly match in Foxborough before 62,000 people, thanks to a couple of first-half goals. WNBA, Dinah Taurasi had 17.6 rebounds and 9 assists, but she also got her 9th technical foul of the year, and that will require her to miss tonight's game against first-place Chicago. Phoenix last night made it 4 straight wins, beating New York 80-76. That eliminates the Liberty from the playoff hunt. Minnesota clinches the top spot in the West. They knocked off Seattle 73-60, 20 points for Maya Moore, who shot 7 of 10 from the floor. There's 3 days between games. Patriots getting ready to take on the Jets tomorrow night, and they've got some injuries, including leading rusher Shane Vereen, who missed the game. Giants have signed running back Brandon Jacobs.